Hey everybody, I'm here with Todd Hargrave, and today we're going to talk about hub marketing. Now, at its core, hub marketing isn't really all that hard, and so I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about it too much, but this has honestly been one of the most successful tools that Todd has ever given me. And if you go to any of Todd's workshops, this is one of the things he talks about a lot. The thing with hub marketing, though, is that if you haven't thought about your niche, if you haven't thought about, at least partially about your point of view, it's really difficult, I've found anyways, to go about doing hub marketing because you can't really tell people what it is that you do. And so, you know, if you haven't seen the other two videos that we've done on actually the other three videos, why marketing is icky, point of view, and niching, I highly recommend you watch that one first before you check out hub marketing. Tad, let's go through hub marketing for folks that have never heard of this concept, and let's break it down for them so that they can go out and action on some of these things.
Sure. Yeah, and before we start, Rob, I just noticed you haven't changed your shirt in any of these videos. Is everything okay at home? You just...
It's part of my point of view, Todd.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, hub marketing, you know, maybe best to share the story. When Rob and Michelle came to me years ago, they had a PDC that they were trying to fill. And, you know, just trying to get people in it, and it wasn't happening. And so the initial thing we needed to do, just because there wasn't a lot of time, was we reworked the sales letter. But one of the pieces I gave them, and they weren't able to do it this year, but they did the next year, I said, you know, the key is, instead of just trying to reach people on the internet kind of randomly or hope you find them, find out where do they congregate and maybe do a tour of live workshops. Because if you're trying to fill, you know, a PDC, just my little hot marketing tip, doing live workshops and intros where people can meet you and get a sense of you and ask you questions and hear your point of view, is going to be, you know, in my opinion, one of the most solid ways to do it. I said, could you find people and then just partner with them and say, hey, you can keep all the money or 50% of the money. And so Rob did a number of those, and Michelle, traveling around, they came up to Edmonton, and our group, the localgood.ca, we hosted them. And gosh, I think that evening made us like $400, $800. We just paid for your gas, which was huge for us as a little community group. But did a similar thing. And because these groups had a vested interest in, because they were going to make all the money on it, and they just literally had to host it. They didn't have to put on a workshop. There's a real interest in fill the room with as many people as you can financially. So the host does really well. They get in front of a group of new people who maybe never heard of them before, and you know that helps them fill their workshop. So you get this win-win-win. You know, and then the next time, if they'd want to do it, it could have been like, hey, can we just do 50-50? And I think most of the hosts would have just been thrilled with that. So this idea of hub marketing, it's this idea, there's kind of three levels of marketing, if you can imagine. There's a cold level, and the cold level is where, this is, I think, how most people imagine marketing is. Cold approaching people, cold calling, just random business mixers, handing out business cards, leaving brochures in random places. Cold meaning there's no relationship. They don't know you. They don't trust you. And this is hard. This is like 10 units of effort to 1 unit of reward. You know, it's not a sustainable approach. It's very hard. And then people beat themselves up, be like, oh God, there's something wrong with me. I can't make this work. It's not that. It's just the dynamics of it are difficult. Next level. So by the way, that level is like, here's you, here's your ideal client. And you're trying to just approach them. Say, hey, hire me, spend your money here. Hub marketing is saying, okay, there's you, there's your ideal client, but there's also this third factor up here that I call the hub. So let's say it's a person who's already got a relationship with the people, your ideal clients. And in fact, not just one of your ideal clients, but a bunch of them. There's a whole crowd, and this hub has a relationship. So if instead of trying to connect with these people, if you try to connect with the hub and build a relationship there, and the hub endorses you to those people, it works a lot better. You know, So that's the warm approach. Warm being your ideal clients already have a warm relationship with this hub. And so by fostering the relationship with the hub, you get to benefit from all of that.
But the thing is, though, Todd, I mean, and this comes back to maybe you can help tie it together with the niching thing. Like, how are you going to go about finding those hubs if you don't actually know what your niche is?
You can't. There are no, because I mean, then you're back to like, well, I help everyone with everything. Great. So what are the hubs for that? Oh, what's the best part? Everywhere is a hub. It's just it all crashes and burns. If you have no niche and no particular clear point of view, it is very difficult to figure out where do these people hang out, because it all hinges on these people.
Right.
Who are these people? Well, everyone. Okay, that's the problem. Or when you get the pseudo niches of, well, I work with people who are stressed. Great. Where do they hang out? Oh, everywhere, because it's called humanity. Or people going through transition. There's a lot of code things that people use that are very fuzzy that functionally translate as all humans alive.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult when it's like, if the niche isn't clear, and if people go back and watch the video, we go through this bullseye of like there's a demographics, psychographics, and then there's the thing in the center. And if that thing in the center is not established, that's where you get most of the hubs from. Some of it you get from the psychographics. Almost zero hubs from the demographics, though, frankly. It depends on the business, I guess, but very few. Mostly it's that thing in the center, which I'm not going to say as you go watch the video. But, so it starts with that. But then, so there's this cold level, this warm level, and the hot level is where you have become a hub. You've become the center of something. Meaning your niche is well established. Your niche, the role that you want to be known for, is well known. Everyone's like, oh yeah, you have this problem? Go talk to this person. Oh, you want that result? This is the one you talk to. So you've become a center of something. And then, of course, in that position as a hub, now you're this person. So you can start to do these joint ventures and introduce people to other people. You can get paid for that or not, up to you. But this just works so much better because I see so many entrepreneurs struggling with this cold approach. And it's just so much harder versus you think, okay, well, who's my ideal client? Who's already connected to them? Where are they already spending their time, their money, their attention? Where do they hang out? Sometimes it's just knowing which events they go to and being at those events. You just have a booth, or you're even just hanging out there and talking to people, and people start to get to know you. It's just like other people have already done the heavy lifting of gathering your ideal clients.
Totally.
It's already happened,
Yeah, this really struck me actually when we had our first son, which was about, I think we started working with you just before we had him actually. And I remember you just harping on this. And I remember that just before he was born, and then afterwards, Michelle started drinking all this raspberry leaf tea. And raspberry leaf tea is really good for pregnant women to prevent stretches. And all the stuff that was available was coming from China. And I was like, oh, that's what Tad's talking about. If I were to produce raspberry leaf tea for women in pregnancy, I instantly know where to find them. Because the people that are going to be drinking that are all going to be working with doulas and midwives. And also, they're probably super health conscious. And so they're going to be interested in a product that's like organic or beyond organic. It's like, now I know exactly who to have conversations with. Instead of having to try and fight my way into Community Natural Foods or Planet Organic or something, I can go straight to the source and have the exact conversations that I have. And likely those doulas hate recommending non-organic raspberry leaf tea from China.
Huge. And it's, when you start to realize that, then it's like, you might also say, okay, so like Community Natural Foods or these organic stores, it's hard to get in, but I could probably go make friends with the people in the supplement section.
Right.
They don't give a shit. They're not corporately loyal. They would probably love to know about another company locally that does that. And because sometimes people come in and in the prenatal vitamin section and oh, wait, are you having a baby? Yeah, we're expecting. And are you doing a doula midwife? Yeah, we are. And the conversation happens. And so that might be a place. But there also are going to be these there's, I know in Calgary or near Calgary, there's the Babes in Arms store,
right.
That was for a lot of like more the organic moms and stuff. So you start to map it out. So this is on a practical level. Let me say this. So this all hinges on having some niche that's pretty clear. But if you've got that, then the very next question is you want to make a hubs database, I call it. So I'm just like a spreadsheet where you make a list of what are all the places you'd find them. So the example I give a lot of my workshops is there was a realtor I heard about in Seattle who focused on pet owners, specifically dog owners. And so when you think about it, and I use that because this example I think everyone would be familiar with, but you've got, how would you reach the dog walkers? I mean, you could just literally walk around downtown Seattle and hope you see somebody with a dog, or just cold approach people, say, do you have a dog? Are you thinking about moving? But aside from that being just monstrously creepy, it's not that effective. Like, what a waste of time. And not like people would do that necessarily, but I've seen people do like almost that. I know people just went door knocking for their business. So what if instead of that, you said, okay, where would we find dog owners? Well, there's the pet stores, obviously. There's the dog shows. There's dog walkers. There's the groomers. There's dog breeders. There are kennels. There are vets. There are, et cetera, et cetera. Give us 5 minutes and we'll have a list of 30 or 40 categories, not even specific businesses, but just a type of thing. That's not even counting the meetup groups, the newsletters, the hashtags, the radio shows, the TV shows, all that. So, and if you can't find any hubs, it probably means the niche isn't that good.
Right.
There's something that's not so clear about it. But that's the first thing I recommend for people. You make a database of all these places. Where would I find people so I don't have to approach them cold? Who's already connected to them that I could build a relationship with and they could introduce me? So, I mean, we talked about in the niching video, Mike Dorian with the compost tea. So if he's trying to reach, residential, homeowners, they're going to be, first of all, anyone who's doing permaculture in town is a hub for him, is an introduction for him. But there may also be other gardening companies in town. They're not strictly permaculture, but other landscaping companies that they're happy to endorse something that's not a chemical. They're very open to that, or at least having that on their menu. There may be neighborhood association. There could be all sorts of hubs for him. But unless the niche is clear, very difficult to come up with it. But that's the first step. You come up with a list and give yourself time. Give yourself like 30 days to just map it out. Who's who in this scene? And then you can kind of rank them 1, 2, or 3, in terms of order of priority. And that's kind of the foundation that you start with. Then if I were to say step 2 is you start just once a week, connect with a hub.
Yeah.
Go for coffee, have a phone call, email, whatever works for you. But start to connect with a new hub every week. It's profound what this will do, because at the end of the year, that's like 50 hubs. That's 50 connections of dozens of potential clients.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is to consider, could you, and this is moving right to the hot level, could you host the hubs in some way? Could you bring them all together to meet each other, to connect with each other, knowing that could help your business too? So, if you were this realtor working with pet owners, what if you just brought those people together for an afternoon to meet each other, to connect? The thing is, they will all remember you because you're the host.
Of course.
And they will, then it's the most natural thing. If you do a little round of introductions, everyone gets 2 minutes to introduce themselves, what they're up to, what's coming up next for them. As you're sitting there, you will know intuitively, who should I connect with more? That person. And then it's the most organic thing in the world after the circle to say, hey, we should go for coffee.
Yeah,
and I promise you they'll say yes.
One of the things that strikes me about your process here is that you come to the hub with value. I mean, these people are the busiest people within their space, within the city, or with whatever bioregion they're working in. And if you just show up on their door and ask them to promote you, you're going to piss them off.
Yeah, good point.
But if you come there with value, just like you had proposed going and offering workshops as an example to people for free or for an incredible deal for the person that's going to host you, you recognize their value. They've put a lot of effort to become that hub. And you're going to get a lot more interest from them to share their network and to help you to succeed if you help them succeed.
Yeah, my colleague George Cow talks about the 3 wins He's like, one win, it's got to be a win for you. If you're approaching a hub, you got to get something out of it. Number two, it's got to be a win for the hub, but it's also got to be a win for the hub's people, the ones that they're introducing you to. So, that thing I mapped out earlier, there's you, there's your ideal clients, there's the hub. All three have to win.
Right.
Because, also you could go to the hub and say, hey, you'll make all this money if you host me. And they say, that's great. And they host you and it's a terrible workshop and gets a lot of complaints. That doesn't work. It's not going to be sustainable. But if you deliver something really good and they benefit from it, and this is what Rob said, I just want to underline this. When he said hubs are busy, everyone's busy. Hubs are like so busy because they're dealing with everything you're dealing with, plus they're getting picked at by dozens of emails every day asking for 5-minute favors and could you connect me with this and who should I talk? They get that all the time. So if you can go and they understand from your approach that you get this, they just melt. If they say, look, here's the deal, would you be willing to host me to do a workshop? You keep all the money. Plus, we've pre-written all the content. We've got posters already done. We can put in all the info. We'll send it to you. Literally, all you're going to have to do is cut, paste, send, reshare a thing on Facebook. We're going to make it so easy for you. Hubs just want to cry. They're just like, thank you for understanding how hard our life is. So make it easy for them. The more stress you can take out of it for them, the more the work you can do for them. Like, write it for them. They'll probably edit it a little bit. Or entirely, but it's easier to start with something. I had some colleagues from California who came up and they were doing a kind of conscious business workshop. And luckily I kind of knew something about them, but the content they sent me to share was so vague. It was so nebulous and confusing that I was like, I can't share this. So I rewrote the whole damn thing. But after it was all done, I sat down with them. I was like, I will never do that again. I love you. And I will never do it again.
Right.
And I'm telling you that hubs are not going to do this for you. So you've got to make this material better. And they heard me. They got it. But, we show up with some value, understanding years, sometimes decades of relationship building. And because if you treat a hub well and you foster that relationship, you could swoop in and not offer them anything, and a hub just out of their good heart supports you. But it doesn't sustain as well as if you honor it and say, hey, this conversation, these connections just saved me years. I'd like to send you some money, or I'll give it to a charity you care, whatever. It's not about the money per se. It's just about them being honored and them knowing that that's being taken seriously.
Yeah, so many people just aren't grateful for, we just kind of have this expectation that other people are just going to, out of the kindness of their heart, do this, and eventually it runs out. So yeah, being able to approach hubs with value, and especially the coffee idea, I think was one that was really successful for Michelle and I. Just, meeting with one person a week for, I don't think we did quite a year because things just got so busy so quickly because of all the success we were having with talking with hubs.
I've had the same thing. It's funny. I was thinking about how I used to tour, and I was like, man, I used to hustle so much harder.
Yeah.
Like, I'd show up in a city and I had a whole database of hubs, and I'd individually email them all and ask if they could spread the word. And it worked really well. But like last few times, I don't tour a lot, but Toronto is a place I'll often do workshops. And it's like, man, I just have to kind of send out a few emails, maybe do a Facebook ad, a group email to some hubs. And that's it. It just kind of fills with word of mouth now because I've done enough stuff. So yeah, this does start to happen. You start to work the hubs thing, and one day you'll look back at your hubs database and be like, shit, I haven't touched this in years.
Yeah. Totally.
And when you come to a point where you want to grow, then you can come back to this. But, that's been my experience. You do hit a certain stride. And it doesn't take a lot of hubs. Like, there's one guy, he's a acupuncturist in Victoria, and his whole business was based on 2 hubs. One was a physiotherapist who really liked him, who just referred all his clients. But the other one, he did a talk at a New Age church, and they just liked his point of view. They liked what he had to say, even though it wasn't about acupuncture. And a bunch of them became his clients. So it was just 2 hubs, so it doesn't need to be hundreds. Sometimes you just find a few that are so well connected to your ideal clients, and it works.
You know, just listening to you talk and like coming up with all these, or reliving or rethinking about all these ideas that I've thought about over the last decade. I remember the first time I was introduced to you by a guy named, one of our friends. Shoot, what's his name? Doesn't matter. Anyways, he basically referred me. So you got to take Tad's workshop. And you know, at the time it was really expensive. I wasn't making any money doing what I was doing. And listening to and like going through these conversations with you and these videos, honestly, Tad, if there's one regret I have in everything that I've done, and it might have changed the course of where we are today. I mean, we're successful, we're doing well and all that stuff. I love what I do, but I don't know if I would have ended up in this exact location if I had thought a little bit more clearly about my point of view, my niching, and hub marketing. And I think I could have short-circuited where we are right now had I done a bit of this pre-work. You know, it's interesting as young entrepreneurs, it's easy to just discount other people's advice because, you know, but like, honestly, I think dollar for dollar, the money that we've spent with you and like the advice that you've given to us has, I don't even think 10x is enough. It's probably like 100x return on investment. And like, again, I come back to the fact that we're having these conversations because I'm having these conversations with my students, and I'm trying to encourage them to think more deeply about what problems they're solving, who they're solving it for. And like, I get a lot of emails from them saying, "Oh, can you spread this on Facebook? And can you promote this through your newsletter?" And blah, blah, blah. Of course I can. I'd love to. But there's more hubs than just me. And you can't figure out where those hubs are if you don't, it comes back to the niche. So just to kind of round this conversation out, basically, I mean, we talked about this idea of once you've got your niche, figuring out who you can have coffee with on a regular basis to try and figure out who your hubs basically are that might help, coming with value, over time, building a hub list, and lastly, you know, eventually you do become the hub if you do this hub stuff enough. If people want to get a bit more granularity in this, Tad, what's the next step? How can they get more information? I know, did you say you're building a hub book right now, or you built it?
I did. I just released it the other day. I'm actually just trying to find where on my website it is. Yeah, if you go to marketingforhippies.com/hub-marketing, you'll find the ebook there. And it's an ebook that goes really in depth in the 7 different types of hubs, how to keep track of the hubs, how to approach them, a ton of examples of people who approached me terribly and people who approached me well.
Am I in there?
Yes, the first example. It's a miracle I still talk to you. A lot and a ton of real life examples of hub marketing and how it works in a number of different industries. So it is a resource I'd check out. But the thing, I want to go back to what you were saying, Rob, about the basics. You know, there are so many bright, shiny things, Facebook and Instagram and you know, there's all, you know, text marketing and all sorts of things. And I imagine there'll be more shiny things that come out in the future. But, you know, it's funny. It's like when people have health issues and their first move is to get a crystal. I'm just like, crystals? That's your first thing? Like, how about exercising, meditating, stretching, good nutrition, you know, de-stressing your life, decluttering? How about some of the basics? You know, there's certain things. And so in business, figuring out your niche, figuring out your point of view, figuring out hubs, these are like the basics. This is the foundation of the house. It's hard to have anything that lasts without that. And here's the reality. I mean, with niching, we didn't really go into this when we talked. There is in the beginning a certain amount of experimentation. That's just how it is. You don't land on your, you know, forever niche, if there is such a thing, right away. It can take some time to get there. And with some support, you can get there faster. It's just the reality. If there's somebody there who can ask you some really hard questions, you know, and sometimes ebooks, and whether it's me, whether it's somebody else or other resources, I do recommend getting some help, even if it's just sitting down with some colleagues and friends and giving each other some external feedback. So many solopreneurs are like real emphasis on the solo. They have to do everything on. I did it. myself, I never had a business coach, so who the hell am I to talk? But so I get it, and I get the instinct to just want to do it and get out there. But yeah, it was also lonely. There weren't a lot of other people doing what I was doing when I started this like 15 years ago. I was kind of one of the only people out there, and now there's so much more. So, you know, I would wish for you what I didn't have access to. There's there are a lot of great business coaches out there. And for the business side, for figuring out your niche, for figuring out your point of view, for figuring out your hubs, do get some help with it if you can. Yeah, it makes a big difference, because otherwise what you do is you have a generic niche. You stick with the hubs, you know, so you keep bothering Rob and hounding him, you know, because you haven't thought it through. And yet everything ends up just kind of being generic, and you keep going back to the same well again and again.
Yeah.
People, oh yeah, well, I'm going to keep reaching the people who are already into permaculture. But that's who everyone else is trying to reach already. It's already tapped out, or it's going to be soon. I'll go to the same hubs then that everyone else is going to.
Yeah.
And how sustainable do you think this is? And frankly, think about the poor hubs, who are the ones who have to deal with this. Like, for their sake, get creative, you know, and go to them when you really need it. If it's that one, you know, where it's like, I finally figured out something that's perfect for this list. Because they'll be like, that's thoughtful. You're right. That is perfect for my list. That's something I'm happy to promote. Oh, and you've already pre-written it? Thank you so much for doing that.
Totally.
But it does come down to these basics. When people come, it's like, what should I do for the sales page? Or I'm thinking of getting this ClickFunnels thing, or I'm thinking about, you know, the Infusionsoft and all this. And I'm just like, I look at them and I'm like, do you have a niche? Have you thought about your hubs yet? Do you have a clear, articulated point of view that you could tell me right now? You know, they don't. And I'm like, why are you spending all this money on this fancy stuff when the basics aren't even in place? Yeah.
So, you know, what really strikes me is that, and I've been thinking a lot about this. I read a book, I think about 2 years ago, called The Signal and the Noise. And so in some ways, the internet is making marketing easier in some, although I think we've kind of reached a peak. Like, when you and I first started talking, Facebook was easy. Like it was easier to get through.
Totally.
And now, like, more people are online, more people are carrying around smartphones. Everybody wants to share everything all the time. And there's just a ton of noise. It's like, it's almost a din. And what hub marketing is, in my opinion, is creating signal. And I actually think that word of mouth and hub marketing it cuts through the bullshit. It's like all that stuff. Like, in fact, I find myself now when I want to buy something new for something, it's like,
you go on Facebook, don't you?
Or I talk to my friends. It's like, Javin has this thing. He's tried it out. I don't have to look at the 5,000 different options that exist there. He's probably already tried 2 or 3. He's going to tell me which one. If he says XYZ, I'm going with it. I don't want the minutia of trying to figure that out. And so what you're really talking about is getting people who are trusted advisors for a community that can basically send out a signal. When you tell me, like George Cow, for example, I saw a post from you the other day. It's like, Tad thinks George Cow is awesome. I want to go talk to him because Tad said so, and I don't have to go through 15 other marketing guys to figure out who I should and shouldn't be talking to. Tad's not going to put that up there unless he thinks he's great.
Yeah, amen. You know, and this is, you say it better than I could have. I should have started with it. You know, word of mouth is how marketing works. Actually, that's the reality of it. When you look at the stats, there's, you know, a bunch of books I've read about this. But basically, this is why people actually buy what they do, is because their friends or people they trust said, you know. So when people spend all this money on like this fancy stuff, when it's like what really works is the word of mouth, then you get this question of like, okay, so then how do you make the word of mouth work? And then you start to see the reality is, I mean, the basic thing is you do a good job at what you do so that the people you've worked with tell their friends because they're so thrilled. But assuming that's there, then you know that within a certain community, within a certain niche, there are certain people who are just more well connected, they're better respected. And so these are people we start to build relationships with, because and I had this the last civic election where people were messaging me saying, who should I vote for in my ward?
Right.
Because they're like, I'm too busy but I trust you. I trust your politics. So who will you say? And I would just be like, well, look, this is who I would vote for if I were in your ward. So this happens all the time. And so yeah, when we want to buy something, we'll ask our friends or we'll post on Facebook and say, hey, what do people say? But then you'll notice it's like, well, who recommended it? Oh, that person? I don't know if I would trust their opinion on that.
Right.
Somebody, oh yeah. We do that sometimes before Google now. We'll just put it out to our friends. So you're right. There is so much noise, on Facebook. Like, how many people even check their event invites? If you catch it when the first notification pops off, fine. Maybe people post in the thing and it reminds you, but nobody is going to their Facebook events list anymore.
Right.
To check it out. And how do I know this? Because I was one of the last holdouts. I was doing that. I would every week, I'd go through and I'd check because I wanted to support my friends, and I don't even do it anymore. So I tell you, almost nobody's doing that because there's so much noise. Yeah, so how do you cut through it? The way you cut through it is you find where there is a path to your existing clients that doesn't need to be cut through. What's a path that's already been walked?
Trust.
And, so that's the path between the hub and your ideal clients. That is a well-trodden path. There's no noise in it. You can just send you could throw a paper airplane right down that, wouldn't get snagged on anything. So it's, if you're using these mediums where there's already so much clutter and so much static, it's real hard to be seen. And I'm not knocking Facebook ads, because that can also be, you can target those in their own way. But there is something very powerful when you ask a bunch of people you respect and they all give the same name.
Right.
It's like, this person, oh yeah, oh definitely, that's what, suddenly you're just because they are your filter, because it's so hard to make decisions and people don't want to have to make hard decisions about these things. So if you ask a few people who you trust, because we all got that friend who's got really great taste in music. And whenever they recommend a band, you're like, it's always my favorite new thing.
Right.
So you get to a point of trust where it's like, if they recommend it, you're just like, I'm in. Read this book, I'll read it. And that's what hubs are. And then if you make those solid recommendations over time, then people trust you. So that is huge, yeah.
So really, maybe that's the capstone of all of this, is that good marketing is signal. It's a signal that solves a specific problem for specific people. You've said this over and over again, that the confused mind says no. And so we've taken people through, number one, that marketing doesn't have to be icky. It can actually it's basically signal. And then that signal that you send is all about what you believe, your point of view. But in order to be able to convey your point of view, you need to know who you're conveying it to and how, and that's the niche. And in order to prevent yourself, save yourself from having to go door to door, do you believe in this? Do you believe in this? Do you believe in this? If you have a clear niche, you can go straight to the people that have the trust with the largest number of people to deliver that signal if there's a fit. And it comes back to giving that hub value. And that's really, Tad, you have totally revolutionized marketing for me. I used to hate it, and now it's one of my favorite subjects to think about.
Interesting. Well, awesome. Yeah. And the only thing I'd add is it's the signal, but like Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. So it's like who the signal comes from,
right,
becomes a part of the signal.
Sure. It strengthens it.
Yeah, it's amen. Right, but if there is no clear signal,
what are they amplifying?
Something fuzzy. Because there are some people who are like, I wish I was on Oprah. And it's like, no, you don't. It's like, that would just destroy you faster. Everyone would be like, what the hell? Faster, and louder. So yeah, it's, y'all, the basics. What's the niche? What's your point of view? Who are the hubs? If you handle these, your life is going to your business life anyways, get so much easier. You get more result with less effort. You start putting in 1 unit of effort and you start getting 10 units of reward. It's a when I've seen people really nail this, I've seen a few people literally just out of the gates have a really clear niche, a really clear point of view, and we're already connected to the hubs. And their business was literally like full overnight. Like it's a friend of mine, Parneet in Montreal, I'm thinking of. She's a queer woman of color therapist who's super into the kind of kink and polyamory scene. And she just is lovely, and people, you know, she built relationships in that. And as soon as she launched, her practice was full. You know, so it's like, this is what happens when you've got when you've got those basics clear. It's just so much less effort. So wherever you get the help, I hope you get it in terms of working on it, because it's yeah.
Todd, thanks so much for speaking with me. I mean, I think, you know, my point of view is that we can fix the planet and make a right livelihood at the same time. And you've definitely facilitated that with us. And so, you know, you get my signal right all the time. I'm always sending people to you. So if you guys haven't heard of Tad, check out marketingforhippies.com. It's an incredible amount of resources there. Tad's blog, his newsletter. He's got tons of ebooks on all the different subjects that we've talked about. If you get the opportunity to check him out live, he's not only super smart and full of information, but he's actually pretty funny. You want to leave with a couple jokes, Tad?
Yeah. Do you know what kind of cigarettes hippies smoke?
No.
Yours? Do you know why all the hippies moved to Nelson?
No.
I heard there was no work there. Do you know why the lifeguard didn't save the hippie?
No.
He was too far out, man.
Thanks, Tad.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
You too. See you.
Yeah.